Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the show, everybody, on this lovely Sunday. And we are now just days away from, 2 days away. Doing the math here. That's right, June 24th, where New Yorkers get to decide between a mass murdering former governor who killed people by putting them into nursing homes during COVID, which is like basically taking a flamethrower to dry grass. Yep, Andrew Cuomo did that. He's now running for mayor, and he's going against Zoran Mamdani, who basically tried to excuse the saying, globalize the intifada, which basically means kill all the Jews. And he was on the Ridiculous podcast hosted by Tim Miller of the Ridiculous Bulwark when he was asked about this. And here was his response. And this is why this guy could get nowhere near the mayorship of New York if he were to win, because this is a dangerous person. Cut one, go.
To me, ultimately, what I hear is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights. In standing up for Palestinian human rights. And I think what's difficult also is that the very word has been used by the Holocaust Museum when translating the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising into Arabic, because it's a word that means struggle.
No, it doesn't mean that, actually. I'm looking it up right now. Intifada is an Arabic word that means rebellion, uprising, or resistance movement. It has nothing to do with equity, equality. This guy is a joke. I mean, don't even get me started as far as he's going to freeze all the rents. You know what that would do to housing? He would destroy New York City. I mean, this does not work. Ask Cuba, ask the Soviet Union, ask Venezuela. You cannot have government-controlled pricing on anything. That's not how this country works. It's how a communist country works, and that's exactly what this guy would do to New York City if it isn't already almost there already. So I guess Andrew Cuomo is the better choice. Kinda. No, not really. I mean, we remember what he did as far as bail in New York and all these dangerous criminals being put right back out to the street. The poor NYPD and police officers across the state, they arrest somebody who's a violent criminal, and in the time it takes to order a McDonald's drive-thru, that person is back out committing more crimes. So those are your choices, New York. Oh, I guess in Brad Lander, the guy who got arrested for obstructing federal officers trying to do their job, and then goes out, cries, and plays the victim. Give me a break. I mean, this is the best we can do, honestly. Now, this is only a primary. I get it. And Curtis Sliwa will probably be the Republican nominee. And if he's going to have any chance of winning, this is the best election that he has a chance of winning, because now we have seen Bill de Blasio and what he did to the city, and now Eric Adams, who's supposed to be the moderate choice, and what he's done to the city. And maybe finally New Yorkers will say enough is enough. We have to go in a completely different direction and just get back to common sense. Forget conservative, forget liberal, common sense stuff in making this city what it was under Rudy Giuliani and what it was under not one, not two, but 3 terms under Michael Bloomberg. So yes, people that are moderate to conservative in Giuliani's case can get elected in the city. But the problem is, I'm now talking, when was Giuliani elected again? 31 years ago, 35 years ago? I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence, only because the turnout rate is 21% in New York City. 21%. 4 out of 5 of you stay home when it's time to say, hey, you complain about the city, you say it's horrible, the crime is out of control, we have budget shortfalls into the billions because we're taking care of illegals and just giving away a bunch of free stuff, and people are moving out of this city more than any other city in the country outside of San Francisco, and everybody complains, but when it's time to vote, 4 out of 5 people stay home? How is this possible? do something about this and stop electing these people. New York, please do something. Get off your butts and vote. I'm Joe Concha. This is the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Back with more in just a moment.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Choice Hotels gets you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a Comfort Inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles. Fluffy, golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
America's beverage companies are investing in America. We're American companies, making American products with American workers in America's hometowns. We're local bottlers and manufacturers, operating in all 50 states, employing more than 275,000 Americans in good-paying jobs, delivering for the nation, because we believe in the promise of America and the people who make it great. Learn more at WeDeliverForAmerica.org. Paid for by the American Beverage Association.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's bring in our first VIP guest. She is the author, 2 national bestsellers, Laptop from Hell, and, of course, The Big Guy, How a President and His Son Sold Out America. You can buy both on Amazon or wherever you get books, obviously, also with the New York Post. A great columnist, Miranda Devine. Miranda, how are you?
Hi, Joe. I'm really well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. So you are on a roll lately. I mean, you have this great podcast called Podforce One. You had the President Trump on last week. Now you got Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. I mean, you're getting the biggest guests on these shows. What did Mr. Bessent have to tell you as far as the big, beautiful bill and overall how the economy is doing?
Thanks, Joe. Look, Scott Bessent was absolutely fantastic, very open about everything to do with the economy and, his relationship with Donald Trump, et cetera, and Elon Musk. He had a bit of a sort of shouting match with him. And
can I interrupt you there? What happened there? I mean, was there actually pushing and shoving like we've seen, the reports from unnamed sources? I never know what to believe whenever I see an unnamed source, but there definitely was a confrontation, and it could have been physical.
There was a confrontation. I think that the physicality came just from Elon Musk, just with a bit of a shove. But certainly the shouting, the president confirmed it. Sort of, he snickered a little bit and said, "Oh well, these things happen." And I asked Scott Bessent about it, and he said, "Oh, well, we did have our disagreements." And then he described Elon Musk as like a Viking, and described himself as more of a ninja who sort of comes up from the water, fires, and then submerges again. So in the end, Elon Musk is not in the White House anymore, so I guess Scott Bessent won. But, yes. I mean, look, Elon Musk, his time, he only was meant to do 130 days, and he did rub a lot of people up the wrong way. He just, he had a different style about him that didn't really translate very well to Washington.
And we're talking to Miranda Devine, and exactly. I mean, he's definitely a unique character, outside the box kind of guy. He's a tech guy who went into Twitter, cut 80% of its workforce and had it run better, and obviously was able to cut costs. And I think he thought he could do that with government, but it doesn't quite work that way because obviously compromise has to be made when you have, for instance, in the Congress, basically, Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, only has a 1-vote margin. I mean, Thomas Massie you can never count on, so it's basically 1 vote. And then in the Senate, it's only 3 votes. So you can't do at a private company what you could do with the federal government, because unfortunately there are numbers and there are ideologies that don't have anything to do with doing the right thing, particularly from the Democratic side. And I think Elon Musk learned that in a hurry. I do want to talk about as far as this mayoral race. You've been with the New York Post for many years. You are somebody who works in New York on a daily basis. I do as well. I can't vote there. I'm from New Jersey. I live in New Jersey, but I see what's going on here. And I see Andrew Cuomo, who killed all those people, 13,000, 15,000, by sending them to nursing homes during COVID. Obviously, the sexual harassment allegations, that's what put him away. But I think it was a combination of things. So that's not, my ideal candidate. And then I see, Zoran Mamdani, who is, a declared socialist, a guy who tried to... He literally, defended globalize the Intifada, which means kill all the Jews. And he tried to explain it as something that, well, no, actually, it's all about equity. Well, no, it's not actually. I see these choices and I say, can't New York do better? The greatest city in the world, where it's supposed to be, the most complex city in the world. That's certainly for sure. And these are the choices that we have. It's just remarkable to me. As a New Yorker, you watch this, and what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, I mean, it's just sad and so disappointing after, we endured the awful double reign of Bill de Blasio, who, you could see the city just declining around you with, his pot-smoking craziness. And then, Eric Adams, it was a minor improvement, I have to say, coming from a very low base. But, I mean, look, they're supposed to be cleaning out these migrant hotels, illegal alien hotels, because Donald Trump's closed the border and is deporting or trying to deport everyone. But this is a sanctuary city. So they are moving them out of the hotels, but then they're moving them into homeless shelters that are meant for New Yorkers. And it's still going to cost, they're budgeting $1 billion a year for it. So really, it's not much of an improvement. And but, I mean, if you think that Bill de Blasio and Eric Adams were bad, just wait till you have Zoran Mamdani. I mean, you could not have a worse person. Total out-and-out socialist. He's only been a citizen for 7 years, and yet the arrogance of the man, thinking that he's going to decide how the rest of us live and put his sort of fake moral outrage on us, bawling his eyes out about ICE, etc. And then, I can see that people would be lulled into thinking that Andrew Cuomo is the competent kind of moderate guy. But that's not the way he was when he was governor. He was the guy who ushered in bail reform, so-called, which just let loose this disaster with violent crime. He, as you said, killed all the poor people in the nursing homes with his incompetent, stupid nursing home order, which he's lied about ever since. So, I mean, it's out of the frying pan into the fire. There is not a good choice on the Democrat side, and unfortunately, it's always Democrats. I mean, you can always hope that the Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa, can get up, but he hasn't had much luck so far.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're talking to Miranda Devine, that we're almost speaking about whoever wins this primary as the next mayor of New York. And Governor Pataki, obviously a Republican from earlier this century, he came out and publicly said that he thinks that Curtis Sliwa does have a shot here because the Democratic choice may be that bad. If Cuomo were to win, I'd say Sliwa's chances are lower just because of name brand recognition, the fact that he ran the state. He ran it poorly, but when he was in office, up until the nursing homes, he was relatively popular, and that appears to be the base that's fueling him now as far as having a lead over Mamdani. But I think if Mamdani somehow pulls this out, and I don't know if he can, I think that globalized intifada answer that he had was so horrible that when you look back on campaigns and you say, what was the difference? Like with Kamala Harris, you say, what was the real turning point for her? It was when she went on The View. And then when asked, what would you do differently from Joe Biden over the last 4 years? And she looks to the sky and says, nothing really comes to mind. That was the end of her campaign. I declared it on Fox at that time. On that day, I said, it's over. And now the same thing with Mamdani, I think, with that comment. But if he were to win somehow, I think given the choices between basically a communist who obviously is very sympathetic towards Hamas, a guy who wants to freeze rents, which is not going to work. It's just, we've tried this before in the Soviet Union and in Cuba. It does not work. And a guy who has publicly declared over and over again that he wants to defund the police. I think then Sliwa has a puncher's chance, but only if Mamdani is the opponent. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I guess. I mean, the problem is that there's such a low turnout in New York. Maybe Mamdani would stir people to vote against him, sensible people. But, I mean, you look at the Democratic primary, the latest polls show that this outright crazy socialist is catching up to Andrew Cuomo. And, that's in part because I guess people are opening their eyes up to who Cuomo really is. But seriously, given the choice, as bad as Cuomo is, I think Mamdani is just such a menace. At least Cuomo is the devil we know. God knows what Mamdani would do if he was empowered with the vote. You have a voter turnout of less than 20% in the last mayoral race.
Was it that low? Wow, really?
Yeah,
1 in 5.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
1 in 5. Yeah, 21%. So, I guess, New Yorkers just give up. They just figure, well, I mean, it's the game is rigged. The Democrats have got it. Just go about your business and try to live your life or move out.
That is more, and it's true. A lot are moving out, and we're talking to Miranda Devine. We saw this week, Miranda, Democrats refusing to show up for a hearing, basically trying to get to the bottom of how the cover-up happened. It wasn't much of a cover-up. You and I talked about it on Fox for years as far as Joe Biden's brain turning to applesauce. But Republicans wanted answers, and Democrats didn't show up. You've written 2 books on the man. I wrote a book on Biden as well. Are you surprised that Democrats just want to turn the page, move on, and forget what happened, which I would say, and I don't use hyperbole very often for the sake of, cable news or talk radio making these big pronouncements, but I think this was the biggest scandal of our lifetimes as far as a man being in the Oval Office who didn't know he was in the Oval Office.
Yes, and, the cover-up, I think the cover-up was twofold. It was covering up Joe Biden's cognitive issues, decline, and also covering up his corruption. And it is a huge scandal. And as you say, I mean, it's much bigger than, say, Watergate that we've carried on about for so many years. And seeing the Democrats walk out of that hearing, I think it's typical because they know that they are going to be embarrassed because it was up to them, it was up to those senators, those congressmen to actually blow the whistle and do something about Joe Biden. They saw him. I mean, we saw what he was like from the outside. They were there on the inside. They did have moments when they could meet with him, and we know that because a few of them have talked about it, where he was completely addled and out of it. So they are now embarrassed. It's a cop-out. They don't want to be held accountable, but I think they need to be. And I hope that the Republicans in Congress actually, in Senate and the House, actually do a proper job of investigating this. The use of the auto pen alone it's fraud. And as Donald Trump told me, you can tell if the auto pen's being used because there are 2 tiny pinholes in the paper. And if people were around Joe Biden, were signing his name on executive orders and other actions that he didn't know about or they didn't inform him about or he wasn't able to understand, then that was fraud and they should go to jail for it. So this needs to be a serious inquiry. And, John Woo, who I was on Kudlow with a little while ago, we were chatting afterwards, and he said that there ought to be a proper special counsel investigation. This should be bipartisan because we can never let this happen again. It's so dangerous, so consequential. This isn't just looking in the rearview mirror. What happened under Joe Biden's presidency, we have to live with for years the damaging effect, whether it's the 15 to 20 million illegal aliens that now we're going through all sorts of conniptions to deport, or whether it's the problems with Iran. I mean, none of that would have happened if it hadn't been for Joe Biden re-energizing Iran with billions of dollars.
That's right. That's right. And you brought up a word before that's a foreign concept in Washington, Miranda, and we'll leave it here. Bipartisan. That just does not happen anymore with the Democratic Party, who screams about no kings but wants one-party rule. Anyway, we got to go, unfortunately. They're in my ear. But I really appreciate you joining on this Sunday morning, Miranda. And certainly congratulations to Podforce One. Keep up the great guests. And anytime you want me to join there as a backup to the backup, I'm your guy.
For sure. Thanks so much, Joe, and good luck with the show.
Thank you, Miranda. And this is the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. Back with more in just a moment.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
In golf, precision is everything, on and off the course. PGA of America chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business for smooth operations and seamless transactions. Together, we enhance ticketing and concessions for better fan experiences from gate to green. This is pro-level efficiency. This is PGA of America with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
This episode is brought to you by Max. The HBO original comedy special, Gerard Carmichael, Don't Be Gay, is now streaming on Max. Emmy-winning comedian Gerard Carmichael returns to the stage in his boldest special yet, bringing his sharp wit, unfiltered honesty, and the kind of vulnerability that's made his voice truly one of a kind. Don't miss Gerard Carmichael, Don't Be Gay. Now streaming on Max.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
I already love same-day delivery with Shipt, but it's so much better since I signed up for Target Circle 360. Why? Because I no longer pay price markups from the majority of stores through Shipt. Only a handful of alcohol retailers and items don't count. That means no markups on groceries, pet food, even home goods and makeup. So to recap, I have more time to catch up on life while someone shops for me, and I spend less. It's a win-win. Order now at shipt.com/360. Terms apply.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's bring in New York Post columnist Michael Goodwin. This is obviously a very big week with the mayoral primary at hand. And Michael, I thought of you first as far as who do I want on to talk about this ridiculous choice that New Yorkers have at this point as far as Lander, as far as Memdani, as far as Andrew Cuomo, the disgraced Andrew Cuomo. I asked Miranda Devine this before. I'll ask you the same question. Can't New York do better than this? How is this the options, or these the options at this point?
Well, good morning, Joe. Look, I think that you're right. Obviously, this is not a fruitful season, shall we say, for harvest. It's a rotten crop. There's no clear leader here in the sense that you would say, yeah, this person is meant for this moment in New York City with all the problems we have. Can't we get somebody who can at least solve some of them? And the range is what I think is most telling here. I mean, this, as New York races often are, it's sort of a race to the bottom. Who can promise more free stuff? Who can, in effect, exacerbate all of the problems we already have? I mean, take crime, for example. Unless you're really campaigning on promises to change this routine of repeat felons being recycled through the courts and back out on the streets, and then we expect the cops to arrest them again. And I mean, there are people, with 16, 17, 18 arrests, some of it for fairly serious stuff, out on the streets. It never ends. So there's very little talk about that. There's very little talk, almost none, in fact, about the high tax structure, the wasteful government spending that's driving people out of New York. Instead, you get promises of more free stuff for more people. So my view of the candidates is it's really about the electorate. There is no basic center of voters in New York who either understand what's wrong or will fight to make it right. It's almost like it's everybody for themselves. No sense of what it would take to turn the city around. And so we just keep piling on more of the same.
And we're talking to New York Post columnist Michael Goodwin. That's the thing, right? 21%. That was the voter turnout for the last mayoral election, which means 4 in 5 New Yorkers stay home. They don't bother voting. And I just wonder, well, is it because, A, they don't like the choices, or B, they just feel like there is no hope? In other words, like, if I vote, it's not going to matter because the Democrat is going to win. Can a Republican win in this city? Now, it's not impossible, because remember, Michael Bloomberg, who I guess ran as a Republican, then maybe became an independent. He kind of was a Democrat. He governed like a Republican to a certain extent when it came to crime. Anyway, he just basically extended the Giuliani policies that were so popular. And obviously on the governor's level, we did have George Pataki as a governor here. But I guess I'm talking 25 years ago. Is it because the makeup of the city has become Democratic so much to the point where it's impossible almost for a Republican to win? And can a Republican win given that these candidates are so bad, like a Curtis Sliwa, for example?
Look, I think a Republican can win under the right circumstances and with the right candidate. But you're right. There is a huge well of voters who don't vote. They're registered, but if you get a 25% turnout in a general election for mayor, you can see, you work backwards from there, and you can see that the candidates can narrow cast. They don't have to appeal to a majority. They just have to appeal to an animated minority.
Yeah.
And that's what you're getting. You're getting this kind of the activist communities hold undue sway. I mean, we see some of this in the federal level, particularly in congressional districts. But in the blue cities, there are people who don't approve, but there's no candidate appealing to them because they view there aren't enough of them. And so, I mean, the politicians go where the biggest number of votes are. And in New York, that is more government, more freebies, taxes. Sure. Tax me again. There are pockets of resistance to this, but there's no unified resistance to it in the way there was, as you mentioned, Giuliani and Bloomberg. And it's worth looking back at the Giuliani-David Dinkins 2 elections, 1989 and 1993. There were roughly 2 million people voting in those elections. These days, it's more like 1.1, 1.2 million. So the turnout has fallen, even as the population has risen dramatically. And there was probably 7 million people then. Now it's more than 8, maybe 8.5 million in New York City. So this turnout is a major factor, and you're correct to look at it as really that's the winning hand, right? The low turnout decides the election.
And we're talking to Michael Goodwin, the great New York Post columnist. Michael, when you saw Brad Lander get arrested this week, when he literally obstructed federal agents at an immigration hearing, locking arms with someone here illegally, I guess to continue the theme that you just brought up, basically a Brad Lander, or whether it be Kathy Hochul, or whether it be basically every New York politician siding with those here illegally who have committed violent crimes, murder, rape, child molestation, I guess the play is that they are trying to appeal to a far left base that is energized instead of doing the common sense thing, which is, these guys have to go because obviously they shouldn't have been in the country in the first place, and now they're actually hurting the citizens we're supposed to protect.
Well, and that's the second element of what's going on in the city. I mean, this is essentially anti-Donald Trump, right? This is resistance and, performances demonstrating your resistance to Trump. They're all doing it in one form or another, some just with words, Brad Lander with actions, but it's around the whole sanctuary city policy stuff. And it's another way of virtue signaling to the far left. If you elect me as mayor, I will resist Donald Trump. I will fight Donald Trump tooth and nail. I mean, read the fundraising emails of the Democratic attorneys general. I mean, it's disgraceful. It's disgusting. It's like they're fighting an enemy. And they actually use those words, that Donald Trump is an enemy. They don't say the opposition, they say the enemy. So that's the mentality that is dominating the left, that you prove your bona fides by giving away more free stuff to more free people, taxing the rich because they have all the money, so we have to take it from them. It's not their money. They didn't build that. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And then we have to resist Donald Trump. And those two elements are what's driving so much of what we see in this campaign. And look, there are community groups who care about the homeless shelters in their neighborhoods and want more police protection. But they're not united. They're kind of isolated pockets throughout the 5 boroughs. What is dominant is the leftist rhetoric and the media coverage, which inflates these two items to see who can give away more free stuff, who can tax the rich, and who hates Donald Trump the most. I mean, that's sort of what this campaign has been about.
That's exactly right. And we're talking to Michael Goodwin. I find it fascinating, and you tweeted about this, so I'll read the tweet. Because we see anti-Semitism right here in New York City, obviously at Columbia University, and these protests that I don't even know if half these people are students, if they're paid for, but obviously it is an anti-Semitic rally after rally that we see on these campuses, and even right in Times Square just a couple of days ago. Ahmed Mosley, he's a vice president at Pepsi Corporation, one of the bigger companies we have in this country, says 95% of Jews, quote, don't have brains. He denies the October 7th Hamas atrocities, celebrated the massacre by posting a Palestinian flag for Hamas. I mean, I could go on. And the question is, how is this person still employed, and how did he get to be a VP at Pepsi in the first place when this is literally on his social media? He is advertising it, and this guy still has a job as we speak. Take it away.
Yeah, look, I think there is that element in New York and really across America. I mean, I think it became clear, Joe, as long as a year ago, that these were not pro-Palestinians. These are anti-Semites. I mean, when you scratch him, you get this kind of stuff on social media. He apparently feels he can let his hair down and show who he really is. And there it is. He put it in writing, right? He's an anti-Semite. And that's what I think is driving so much of this. And this is, let's admit it, this is an immigration problem. I mean, we have brought into our country a major problem. So many of these students are foreign students who come here wanting to make America like Pakistan or something else when it comes to their moral system and their habits. And this idea that America is letting in so many anti-Semites, so many people, like Ilhan Omar calls America one of the worst countries. This is a woman who was in a refugee camp from her own country. But she comes here and calls America a terrible country. I mean, go back.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to sound like some kind of a nativist, but why are we importing our problems? You know, I wrote recently about Ray Kelly, the great former police commissioner of New York, and there was a time during his tenure when there were a number of misconduct issues with police officers, and it turned out, to his dismay, that a fair number of them were fairly new to the police force. And he said to me, I said, what do you do about that? How do you do that? He said, you know, it's difficult, but we try not to recruit our problems. And that's exactly what America has done. It's recruited its problems effectively by letting people in without vetting them. They're not ready to live in our country. They don't have our values of freedom and tolerance and respect. They have a kind of monoculture, and they want us to be a monoculture. I mean, we see it much more so dramatically in Europe, right? I mean, these gangs and everything. Yeah, no-go zones where the police can't even go. I mean, these are extraordinary developments, and, you know, Donald Trump is trying to fix this with deportations and arrest and all. He's making some headway, but it's a very big problem just considering the numbers. And then you overlap that with the events in the Mideast. Israel is nobody's fool. It doesn't turn the other cheek for these kinds of things, nor should it be expected to. And so, somehow Israel, you know, and the media plays up the coverage that, Israel is starving the Gazans. And we've completely forgotten about October 7th and the way the Gazan civilians celebrated the death and the kidnappings. Look, it's a tough battle. It's a really tough battle to get through this wall of lies and distortions and bigotry, but there's no choice. I mean, thankfully, democracy does give us a way to push forward.
I really appreciate you joining us here on this Sunday morning. And again, great work in the New York Post. Everybody go to nypost.com, read Michael's columns. They are must-reads every time. And once again, we appreciate it, sir. Have a good day.
My pleasure. Thank you, Joe.
All right, thank you. And we'll be back with the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show in just a moment.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner...
You may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And look, what's going to happen here is that we're going to find that milk gets a lot higher, because I don't know if any of you have ever been in a dairy farm. It is god-awful work. We're going to see that groceries and vegetables are higher. We're going to see an effect in our economy, because whether people like it or not, whether Americans acknowledge it or not, undocumented immigrants are an integral part of our society and our economy.
You hear that? All right. That was Ana Navarro, who apparently is a former Republican strategist. She is on The View. She is on CNN. That means she ain't no Republican, not even close. And now she's like one of the leading voices of the TDS anti-Trump movement. And she says that, I don't know if you've ever been on a dairy farm, but it is god-awful work. I am certain, as sure as you were born, right, as sure as the sun rising in the east and birds flying south for the winter, that Ana Navarro has never milked a cow. I am certain of this. I am as certain of this as, let me think, the Rangers not winning another Stanley Cup for another 3 years, since it's been 31 years. Sorry, I'm a Devils fan. Anyway, the point is, the fact that we have people like Ana Navarro arguing for illegal immigration because she says no one else will milk the cows. For starters, cows aren't milked by people anymore. It's basically done by machine. So she has no idea what she's talking about. And just to justify having 12, 15, 20 million people enter this country illegally as something that's good for the country, because real Americans don't want to do the jobs that only they will do, well, also, that kind of hurts the whole, labor movement as far as people in this country looking for jobs, but then not getting them because it's going to cheaper legal labor because they're here illegally and therefore will work underneath minimum wage requirements, for example, because they're not on the books. So why just pay them whatever you want, right? So I just can't get over the fact that this person has not one but 2 TV contracts that pay her 7 figures for this sort of analysis. I'm envious on some level, I got to admit. I mean, I'm with Fox. They treat me great. But, 2 networks pay this person for that? Hey. Anyway, let's go to cut 2, shall we? This will be another real genius in Jasmine Crockett. And here's what she has to say about Donald Trump. Cut 2, go.
Because when you think about it, Kamala Harris, light years ahead of Donald Trump as it relates to qualifications, as it relates to her overall resume, and as it relates to the fact that she was a lot younger. Everybody said that they wanted to get rid of Joe Biden because he was too old. Then you had a younger, qualified, non-felon candidate, and somehow the people still chose the old white man. So, for me, I don't think it was ever about that.
Oh, boy. All right. Where do we begin with this one? Jasmine Crockett, remember who this person is. She is a congresswoman, somehow from the state of Texas, Democrat, of course, who called Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, Governor Hot Wheels. And what she was implying, of course, is that, and strongly implying what she was blatantly saying, is that because Abbott is in a wheelchair, that therefore justifies the Hot Wheels thing, except Abbott's in a wheelchair because he got hit by a tree when he was 26 years old and he's paralyzed from the waist down. And she actually said this and laughed about it. This is a sick person. But then on top of that, to say that Kamala Harris was more qualified to be president than Donald Trump based on a resume? What resume exactly? Let's see. She was a failed prosecutor in San Francisco, then California. Then she was a senator from California where she was deemed the most liberal senator in the Senate by a nonpartisan study. Then she becomes vice president because Joe Biden promised that he would pick a woman of color to be his vice president. And that basically meant either choosing between Karen Bass, no joke, that is the mayor of Los Angeles, or Stacey Abrams, twice failed election denier in Georgia, or Kamala Harris. when you pinhole yourself into, I'm only choosing a woman of color as my vice president, literally those are your three choices as far as name recognition. And he went with Kamala, and obviously we saw her performance as vice president. Again, the sterling resume includes being the border czar, where the aforementioned 12, 15, 20 million people came into this country under her watch. I can't even begin to describe how lucky we all are that she didn't win, and then a heartbeat for the presidency would have been that goofy 80s sitcom dad, Tim Walz. But, thank your lucky stars that Donald Trump won that election. Anyway, guys, that's all for today. Really appreciate you joining the show, and we'll be back again next Sunday on the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. Have a great Sunday. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Sunday Morning Show. You can hear Judge Janine's Tunnel to Towers Sunday Morning Show Sunday mornings at 10. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?